we get to drive the Bernie's truck?
This is my previous realtors.
When do we get to drive?
And I looked at what they did and told me, and literally said, I don't say anything bad about any agent in this town, but I promise you, all I got to do is show up, and I'm going to do better
I
than
get it. The driver's license is 56, but there's still a 12-year-old child in here.
I mean, that 200,
They battle
this thing I
sometimes.
have right now, that was listed by another agent, had 4 pictures on it, all of the outside of the house. That thing has a completely brand new kitchen in it, brand new bathrooms with these fancy sinks, a jacuzzi tub with a freaking with a glassed-in back, and this beautiful jacuzzi tub in the back of this back. I mean, it's like, you know, and it's like you got 4 pictures.
Were they taking the cell phone?
So, oh no, they were taking them for drone. So I mean, that made them the best pictures. You know, they were drone pictures.
So everyone knew what the roof looked like.
Well, yeah, the roof looked good. Good
questions
thing.
about
Good thing.
that
The disclosure says the roof was done in 2018. So that took care of the roof problem. But it's. I mean, it's just. It's embarrassing. I mean,
I don't know. Man, what drives me nuts is you've seen the pictures that I get from my clients. I mean, they're pretty good.
yeah.
I've literally had people walk in and be like, is this the same house? I'm like, yes. And I can prove it. But it's because we got a ladder. We got up a little bit higher. We took the picture. There's a good lens, you know. But there's so many people. There's people that do crap pictures.
Oh yeah.
And I can't go to those people and be like, you're getting screwed. Oh, that's a conversation for another time and place.
No, I think they're, I feel good about what they all do.
I saw that today when I went home.
Pretty much they're gonna wrap it up on both.
Mindy, what's been going on?
Hey,
Haven't seen you forever.
I know. I was wondering where you were. You're usually early, and I got here before you.
I had to go buy my lottery ticket.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm in the pool again.
As I was looking around, I was like, okay, so let's see here. We got the SWAT dedication, we got the other stuff.
All right, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order.
Brooks,
Here.
Jacobs,
Here.
Holmberg,
Here.
Allen,
Here.
Lund.
Here. Approval of minutes.
Move to approve?
Brooks,
Yes.
Jacobs,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Lund.
Yes. Alrighty, to item 4, adoption of agenda.
Move to adopt.
Brooks,
Yes.
Jacobs,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Lund.
Yes. Next we have item 5.1, a Public Works recognition presentation presented by Slim.
Mayor, members, City Council, many times we have employees that through diligence and hard work, they move up through the ranks, and it's not like police and fire. Public Works doesn't have a rank and file, so to speak, military type organization, but with our Public Works Department, it's generally through skill level. Guys work up the ranks, they become foremen, and then they become operation managers. We were in a couple of years ago, we got to kind of look at the thing, we're moving these guys up the ranks, but they don't have any training in being supervisors. So I believe it was Peggy who looked up some information on our APWA site and American Public Works Association site. We found that they do provide training for managers and supervisors. So we took the opportunity to get a couple of our managers, Dave McCannon and Phil Adlich, to attend those classes. It was 90 hours of training they went through. And I'm happy to say they have successfully completed those courses, which should make them more qualified supervisors for our Public Works Department. Phil is in charge of our wastewater division, water pollution control for the city of Warrensburg, and Dave is in charge of our street department. And I'd ask both of those guys to come up here, which I can present them these certificates of completion for their attendance, and They told me they learned something. There you go, guys.
Congratulations to Dave and Phil. And we know it gets infinitely more complicated when you deal with more people than stuff and the task at hand. So good luck to you guys. Next up, item 5.2, we have a proclamation for a Brinks truck. Everybody saw the SWAT vehicle as you were coming in today. This is for that. Rich, you want to come forward? And anybody else you'd like to invite up?
I'm actually gonna let the working people come up this time for us.
Okay.
If that's all right with you.
Yeah. Whoever. Jason.
And all the school staff.
Come on, guys.
So one of the things I want to say, Mr. Mayor, before we get started is, this was truly a community operation. We have a retired Brinks truck. It's rated to stop level 3A ammunition, and we were able to get this for free. The Votech school at the high school volunteered to do all the work for us, and then this great collision place, Warrensburg Collision, donated the paint, and Carlisle ended up painting the truck itself. So I think at the end of the day, we had about $1,800, maybe $2,000 into this vehicle. That very easily could have cost us several $100,000 to get something like it. So we're happy to be able to bring the class in and some of the kids that worked on it and recognize them.
So, very, very cool. So right now I'm gonna read an official proclamation by the city of Warrensburg, kind of to signify how important this is to our community, okay? So bear with me through all of the whereases and therefores and all of that kind of stuff, okay? All right, Warrensburg, Missouri, proclamation. Whereas the Warrensburg Police Department was fortunate to be provided an armored vehicle from Brinks. The vehicle was to be used as armored transport for the Johnson County SWAT team. And whereas it was discovered the vehicle needed to be modified from a vehicle to transport money to a vehicle able to transport several SWAT officers and equipment. The transport vehicle also needed shelving removed, the addition of seats, equipment mounts, and door modifications and paint. Whereas 2 classes from the Warrensburg Area Career Center volunteered to complete the work on the vehicle. Those classes were the Auto Collision class and Auto Technology class. The 2 instructors, Tim Bauer and Brad Small, led a group of 12 students with the modifications and improvements. The students who helped with this project are Tyler Brown, Austin Eckelboom, Cody Goodwin, Alex Hall, Xavier Harden, AJ Keller, Callis Lukish, Caleb Martin, Silas Ryan, Cole Ripperger, Drew Thurnaw, and Chance Valesky. And whereas the Warrensburg Area Career Center should be thanked for their help during the 2018-2019 school year. All the labor for this project was donated by the Warrensburg Area Career Center. And whereas Mayor Casey Lund with Warrensburg Collision donated the paint needed to complete the project, and Carlisle Van Lines provided use of their large painting booth. Now therefore, I, Casey Lund, Mayor of the City of Warrensburg, Missouri, along with the members of the Warrensburg City Council and other community leaders, appreciate this community support that saved the police department and the city of Warrensburg a significant amount of tax dollars. Dated this 13th day of January 2020, signed Casey Lund, Mayor of Warrensburg. So. You guys, but you got your hands full, so we'll give that over to Rich.
So in appreciation for all this, we got a plaque made with everybody's names.
That's cool.
And we'll hand this over to the director of the Career Center, Rusty Sprue.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's great.
That's very pretty.
This is an official SWAT patch.
All Thank you very much. Thanks again, guys.
Well, congratulations, guys. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 6, public hearing. A public hearing on an ordinance approving a conditional use permit to use the property located at 123 East Young Street, Warrensburg, Missouri, for a conforming purpose without correcting the non-conforming situations that are not reasonably possible to eliminate. Barb?
Mayor and City Council, this is a very confusing title, so I will try to make it make sense. But certainly when I'm done, please ask questions if I haven't accomplished that. This is the property at 123 East Young Street, and formerly, several years back, it was a Chinese restaurant. That use ceased in that location in, I believe it was August of 2016. And so at this point, over 365 days have passed and it's lost any grandfathered status it had in relation to the many non-conforming situations that exist on that site. The non-conforming situations out there include the setbacks from the building to the property line adjacent to College Street and the property line adjacent to Young Street, the parking as far as the design and the number of required spaces. So in the code, when it talks about non-conforming situations, there could be a number of reasons that a site is non-conforming. Once you've lost the grandfathered status, then all of that needs to come into compliance in order for the property to be used. Except there is a section of your ordinance, which we did provide a copy in the building or in your packet, which is 2728G2, that says if you use it for an allowed use, a conforming purpose, I believe is what it says, and you correct all of the non-conforming situations that you can reasonably correct, and then council decides you can use it, then you can use it. So that is the situation we find ourselves in now. When we met with the current applicant, the owner, the trust, has a contract with Four Seasons HVAC, and staff met with them and went through all that would be necessary to bring the property up to compliance. And so we'll start with their use. They are, the use that they would be is 4.120, which is a repairing, renovating, cleaning type use. They would be moving their duct work piece of their business from Windsor to Warrensburg. So their main operations would stay in Windsor, and only a few of their staff members would work out of there. And so the majority of dollar volume business would not be done here in Warrensburg, and so that kicks them into 4.120. And that has a lesser parking standard than if you had the majority of your dollar volume business coming in your front door. So they met with staff and went back and worked up a developmental site plan, and you have that in your packet, and staff reviewed it, and they've been able to address all of the parking requirements. And they've moved the dumpster enclosure out of the setback area, and they would be providing, they would, under the Public Works Code, do the curb gutter sidewalk on College and Young Street. So they could correct all the non-conforming situations. The use is an allowed use there. What they can't do is move the building to meet the setbacks. So the setbacks right now would be 40 feet from Young Street, 30 feet from College Street, and the building is roughly 27 to 26 feet from both of those setbacks, or both those property lines. So they're not making the building any bigger, they're not changing the footprint of the building, and so really there's no way to use the building for any purpose unless you made it smaller to meet the setbacks. And so their request then this evening is to, for a conditional use permit that would let them use it for this use, meet all the requirements except the setbacks. It is a limited in scope ordinance granting that conditional use permit. So it is limited to this use group and this building. So if they, if this is approved tonight and they go to the engineer and the surveyor and the facts change and they can't meet all those, then they wouldn't be able to do the project. So we're pretty confident that they can meet those, but it hasn't gotten to engineering yet.
But if the facts change, then it would be brought back to us again, correct?
You could bring it back. I don't know, I mean, the use obviously wouldn't change. At that point, it would be a matter of parking probably. And so, I don't know at that point that staff would say it's reasonable. Because what you're saying is the non-conforming situations that are not reasonably possible to eliminate. So you probably have a different recommendation from staff at that point.
All right, I think that was pretty
Planning
well
and
summed
Zoning
it
Commission
up.
did recommend approval at their meeting last week.
So we'll go ahead and open a public hearing on item 6.1. We had no one that signed up for the list. Did anybody miss this? Last chance. All right, we'll close the public hearing on item 6.1. Moving on to item 6.2. A public hearing on an ordinance amending section 27-6 of chapter 27 of the Code of City Ordinances pertaining to the definition of halfway houses and pre-release centers. Barb again.
This is a code that staff is bringing forward, and we've had some discussions at the staff level and some discussions with other groups in the community over the last few months about homeless shelters, the Victory House, different services that provide housing in a variety of ways to people in need within our community. And what came to light was that our definition of halfway house and pre-release center is broad enough that facilities could find themselves meeting that definition on an infrequent but recurring basis. And staff is just limited to the area of zoning, but from a zoning standpoint, when it did meet that, then it would not be allowed to be in that zoning district. So all of those uses right now are either in residential areas or general business or central business areas, and halfway house pre-release centers are allowed only in heavy industrial districts. And so we have brought forward language, particularly if you look at the red line version, it really shows where we've tried to narrow that definition slightly in saying that the primary purpose of the facility would have to be to house, one, people that have been previously incarcerated, and two, are still under the jurisdiction of the Department of Corrections or the Federal Bureau of Prisons. And so, in that case, let's say you had a homeless shelter and somebody came in one night, they met both of those requirements, that would kick them under the current ordinance into being a halfway house. So for that night, that use would be illegal at that location. That's not the whole reason they're open, that's not the primary reason they're open, that's not why they opened, but it could happen. Same as my house. I mean, if my brother had been in jail and he was out on parole and he came to stay with me for that week, my house would be a halfway house. So we wanted to narrow that definition and have provided the language to do that.
All right, we have a public hearing that we will open. Nobody signed up. Did anybody wish to speak on behalf of that ordinance? If not, we will close that public hearing and move on to item 6.3.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there a reason that it's limited to these well, let me try to organize my thoughts. Where was it? It's limited to heavy industrial.
That was what they set forth when they adopted the code. We've not recommended a change to that.
Out of curiosity, Harold, is that pretty standard across? Is that considered like a best practice, or is that just a Warrensburgism?
I think it goes back to the previous connotations of halfway houses in the community, not really wanting to allow it in the community.
Mm-hmm.
But since they weren't fully able to completely ban it and make it illegal in the city limits, they restricted it to a specific area that is very limited within the community.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know if the culture and the desires have changed with regards to halfway houses and housing of felons and those types of things. But should the council choose to change that, that is something that's always changeable by the council. Just it's like any other thing. It's are you fine with allowing it in your community, and if so, where do you put it?
Right.
And typically with these, you're gonna run into the same things like we did with the sign at break time or the hotel, those types of things. No one's gonna want it right next to them.
Right.
And so, this is an area, heavy industrial is an area that typically is not near residential. And so it was a safe place to allow that without having the problems of having it near residential, uses that most people would not be in agreement with.
To my knowledge, there's not been a facility that meets the definition since that code was adopted.
It was adopted in roughly 1997, 98.
Yeah, I think it's probably.
No, I have never had a
It's
question.
probably a non-issue. I don't
Yeah.
think Warrensburg is a likely community for that to be.
Our code does allow for shelters. This is specifically for a specific type of shelter. As Barb explained, that it is for people that have been incarcerated and are still underneath the jurisdiction of the state and monitored by them.
Because I know there's several ministries that are working with individuals that are on parole or.
Again, because a ministry is not operating underneath the direction of the state, they would
Oh, I
not meet
see.
the
Okay.
definition of a halfway house either.
Okay, now I understand. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
And this is just cleaning up
Right,
the
cleaning up
verbiage
the
in
verbiage.
that, so we don't try to say this because somebody who meets that definition is there. The original intent of that establishment is not a halfway
If the
house.
Missouri Department of Corrections came to Warrensburg and wanted to open up a residential unit to move people out of the jails into a program to help them reconvene with the general populace, and they were paying for it and operating it, that would be deemed a halfway house underneath our definition.
Okay, now I
But
understand.
a church or a ministry simply opening up as Good Samaritans to help an individual who happens to also be on parole, that would not meet the definition of being a halfway house.
Okay.
And that's part of what Barb, I think, is trying to accomplish with this, is we didn't wanna go in and shut those places down and tell them they couldn't operate in here. We're trying to loosen up the ordinances to make sure it's clear that halfway houses does pertain only to those that are being operated by the State Department of Corrections.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll close the public hearing on item 6.2 and open a public hearing on item 6.3. A public hearing on an ordinance amending chapter 27 of the Code of City Ordinances regarding minimum lot size, setback, and driveway requirements for reduced size lots.
So as you'll recall, in December, we brought forward a staff report, and there was a discussion concerning the goals of a future ordinance. And I've outlined those again in this tonight's staff report there on the front page. Because as you get into the ordinance itself, that had to be written into each zoning district, and so the ordinance itself does repeat this same basic information slightly differently each time, 4 different times, and so it can, the overall bones of it and substance of it kinda gets lost within all of those pages in text. So if you recall, this is a ordinance that will allow a reduced size lot of 5,500 square feet minimum at a ratio of 1 reduced size lot to 3 standard size lots, and a standard size lot would be a minimum of 7,000 square feet. In any of our zoning districts, be that R1 single family, R2 1 and 2 family dwelling district, R3 low density multifamily, and R4 medium density multifamily. For these reduced size lots then, the minimum lot width is can be reduced to 50 feet, wouldn't have to be, but it can be. The minimum lot depth has not changed. We've not recommended any change to that. The reduced side setback from 7.5 feet down to 5 feet, and included a provision, and this is at the tail end, this is not in each district section, but at the very end, in the supplemental regulations, we've added a requirement that the maximum driveway width is 20 feet on these size lots, so that you would have at least 30 feet of the frontage of the lot that hopefully would be in green space or landscaping of some type. So we've written that ordinance with those guidelines, and that is what you have in front of you for first reading this evening. Planning and Zoning Commission considered this at their meeting last week and did recommend approval. They had a great deal of discussion around it, and part of that discussion, the primary part of that discussion was probably around whether or not there was a need to disperse those lots within the subdivision, or are we okay allowing them to say all be around one cul-de-sac or in one area of the subdivision. Ultimately, it went through as presented, and they did not recommend amending it prior to presenting it to you.
All right. Nobody signed up to speak on behalf of the public hearing on item 6.3, so we will close that public hearing and move on to first reading only ordinances. First one, item 7.1, is an ordinance amending section 3.4 concerning drinking in public places prohibited of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Warrensburg, Missouri.
So it's been a couple months since we discussed this, but we did bring this back. It does include the appeal process in it that council had asked. So that way if somebody disagrees with the city manager denying or approving something, I guess, that can be appealed to the council for final decision. There's been some questions regarding fees. The ordinance does allow a fee to be set, but that fee typically is set by resolution. And so there would be a separate resolution action if the council chooses to adopt this ordinance that would be brought forward, establishing what the fees would be for this. Staff would need some direction about what the council would like to see with the fee on that, and that would be, one, is there an application fee in general? So just by applying for it, that there is an application fee for it. And two would be, is the costs, as we discussed, setting a fee structure for different personnel and pieces of equipment that were used. Actually, a lot of that's outlined already with FEMA funds and those types of things, but what staff would need to know is whether council wanted to charge 100% of that cost, or whether they're willing to subsidize that, so to make this more affordable and more usable, potentially. But again, those would be discussed through the resolution process when the fees were set. The first step would be is to pass the ordinance to make it allowable in the first place. And then if this passes, then staff would bring back a resolution, and again, staff would need some direction from council as far as what is an appropriate fee for this type of use within our community.
So I know a couple of months ago we talked about Main Street. Is this gonna replace Main Street when they come to council and ask for drinking in public? Would
Yeah.
they just come to you?
Through this process, they would be able to get approval from the city manager, and as long as they meet the parameters that council's outlined in the ordinance, I would then be able to approve or deny, and then they wouldn't be required to come to council. However, if I denied it and they didn't think that was fair or reasonable, then they could appeal to council.
So there was a fee, Brian, I think, asked about getting into Bergfest Gardens.
The current ordinance would not allow that.
That's all I got.
Any questions for Harold? All right, this item is first reading only. Moving on to
Yeah, just first reading.
Item 7.2, an ordinance amending chapter 27 of the Code of City Ordinances regarding minimum lot size, setback, driveway requirements for reduced size lots. And Barb has told us all about that.
I had a little bit of
Opportunity for
question
discussion?
on multifamilies. Is this gonna have anything to do with like fourplexes and duplexes and such, when you said driveways and?
So it would only be allowed on the single family use
That's what I thought.
on those lots.
Any questions for Barb or discussion?
There was a spot on that when it talked about 2 units, it's on our regular ordinance too. Sometimes it can be a little confusing there where it says, what section is that? It's section 5, 1B, where it says dwelling units 2, and then minimum lot area square feet is 4,250.
That's current.
Right, but.
That's per unit.
Correct. I mean, is there a way we can change that? Because I read that before, and I said, oh yeah, we could put a duplex on that, and didn't realize, no way, am I gonna multiply that by 2? I mean, is there a way we could change that in there to where it'd say 9,000 or
8,500.
8,500?
Not without rewriting that section.
Okay.
because the sub-point 1 is minimum lot area requirements per dwelling unit.
Right.
So to do it per structure for one and not the others
Okay.
is gonna mean, I'm not, I mean, I
Well-
think it can be done, I don't know how to do it on the spot.
Right. No, I understand on the spot. I'm just saying maybe the next time it comes
Couldn't
up
you-
or something. I mean,
Couldn't you do just minimum lots area per structure, and that way you would multiply, you know,
That works until you get to the last
right,
one,
3 or more,
3 or more.
right.
and you could indicate it as a note or a notation saying number of units times 3.5, or sorry, 3,500. Does that make sense? You just use algebra.
I know that this.
You're just trading one confusion for the other.
Right. Basically, the reason why I'm bringing it up is because it came up on a lot that I had somebody looking at, and I pulled the ordinance up and said, "Yeah, we can build a duplex there." And then I called you guys, and you said, "No, you can't build a duplex there." And I went, "Yeah, right. Well, okay." I didn't catch the, I mean, so.
I like the way this looks. See how it gets progressively smaller when it goes from
Right.
1 to 2 to 3. That way you can kind of wrap your head around. It's getting. You can fit smaller dwellings on.
Now that I
there
made the
as you go
mistake, I
smaller.
understand it. I just try
Yeah.
to figure out where the mistake doesn't get made again. You
Right.
know? So I mean,
Maybe the easiest one would be to just put per unit after each
there.
number.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That would fix it right there.
And
So
you could,
right.
Yeah, so that's the same thing.
Yeah.
That's essentially what I was just saying. Is
to do that tonight, probably.
Right.
What's the size of a driveway now? You said 20. What
Well,
this passes tonight.
You could have it, on a 2-car garage, you'll sometimes see a 22-foot wide driveway because that is usually, the width of the opening. If you have a 3-car garage, you might get as high as 36 feet. If they do it as wide as the garage as opposed to the opening, you can see them at 24 feet. I think 20 is fairly standard, but it's not always 20.
The intent is to preserve yard space there to make sure that there's some green breaking it up so that people don't drive by and go, oh, that lot's smaller than the other. We want it to blend in with the remainder of the neighborhood. Any other discussion or questions for Barb?
As I said during our discussion, I think this is a good step going forward. I don't think this is the final step or a complete step. I think we need to still continue to look at this and see how we can broaden this even more. This is going to help developers, but I don't think it gets them. I don't think it gets them where they need to be. So to get
So if there's a
that cost.
If there's a lot in town that somebody wanted to purchase and this passes, then they can do it to the standard for the house, setbacks and all that.
No, this would be
Just
for
for
new lots
subdivisions.
that are platted in subdivisions going forward. So if there's an existing lot that is at least 5,000 square feet that existed,
78, 58. It's something.
it's a date in the 70s, 76 or
78.
something
Then I think it might be 78.
was existed before then, and it's at least 5,000, then it can be built with at least a single-family house, only a single-family house. That's what these sections that say any lot or tract of record on the effective date of this chapter which contains at least 5,000 square feet in area may nevertheless be used for a single-family dwelling. That's already in your code, and that is for those existing lots, not new lots. Now, the reason that it says effective date of this chapter is because if you had a larger lot today and you sold your neighbor a few feet of it through an illegal subdivision and created something that's 5,000 feet, you're not going to benefit from this. You won't get to use this piece of code to build on a small lot.
Cause I know there's randomly in the city of Warrensburg a few lots that are for sale that somebody could buy
Yeah.
to build a
Yeah,
house.
there are several that are this size, and I'd say we probably have 1 or 2 a year that come through and either do a major rehab or a new build using this piece of the ordinance. It's pretty
And
rare,
Brian-
but it does
Yeah.
happen.
Brian Colson's done it a couple times. I did it with a builder on a house over on Hickory. I think the Fuller Center's doing it with the house that they're building for, for the Fuller Center. So I mean, there's examples out there of this
Well,
being
before
done.
I buy it, I'll call you.
Yeah, that's the best piece of advice right there. That's
It's
usually what I
not
do.
impossible, but because these lots don't have that smaller setback that these others will have, they are a challenge to build on, because
they
they're
are.
more narrow and it usually requires a custom set of plans. It's not impossible, but it does take a little more effort.
You're probably looking at having to buy a piece of ground at least 24,000 square feet, cause you'd have to do 4 lots. And 3 of those would have to be at the full-size regular lot, and then 1 of those would be at the minimum lot size. Isn't that the ratio we put up, was 3 to 1?
Yep.
3 to 1.
So you're gonna have to be able to build 3 full-size lots to be able to qualify to get the 1 minimum size lot. So you're gonna have to buy a piece of ground that's big enough that you can at least do 3 full-size lots and then 1 smaller lot.
7, 14,
2,
21.
Will be the minimum use to be able to
22.5.
use this ordinance.
So
2,800 square feet. Yeah, should be
We
2,800
have
square feet.
26,500.
26,500. Okay. 7, 14, 21.
So with this being a first reading, do they need to amend that, or can we bring that back, with those words added for the second
The
reading?
per unit,
Mhm.
I'd go ahead and have them make a motion to amend the bill. It's not substantive, wouldn't change the recommendation of planning and zoning.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to
Oh, go
amend the
ahead.
bill to add per unit.
All right, we have a motion to amend the bill by adding the per unit. All those in favor signify by saying aye, or how do we do? No, we have a roll call here. I'm sorry.
Okay, we can say aye.
So melee.
Wrong board.
Amended.
Wrong board.
Happens.
Yes. Aye.
You say yes.
Yes.
Okay. Brian,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes,
Lund.
Yes. Any further discussion or questions for Barb on the first reading? All right, we'll move on to number 8, first and second reading ordinances. First up, 8.1 is an ordinance approving a conditional use permit to use the property located at 123 East Young Street, Warrensburg, Missouri, for a conforming purpose without correcting the non-conforming situations that are not reasonably possible to eliminate. We just talked about this a minute ago.
Move said bill to second reading by title.
Brooks,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Holmberg.
Yes.
Allen.
yes.
Lund.
Yes. Moving on to item 8.2, an ordinance
I need
amending.
to read it again.
Oh, sorry.
This is an ordinance approving a conditional use permit to use the property located at 123 East Young Street, Warrensburg, Missouri, for a conforming purpose without correcting the non-conforming situations that are not reasonably possible to eliminate. This is for adoption or rejection. Brooks,
Yes.
Jacobs,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes,
Yes.
I just wanted to say that that's a great job figuring out a way to get a use out of that building, because that was one of the few buildings in Warrensburg that I figured we were gonna wait for a storm to come through and knock it down before we were gonna find a use for it. So that's a great job figuring out some way to use the building.
I give a lot of credit to the applicant as
Right,
well.
absolutely,
They-
but
They
yeah.
loosened everything we said and,
Yep.
and really tried to figure out what they could do.
Item 8.2, an ordinance amending section 27-6 of chapter 27 of the Code of City Ordinances pertaining to the definition of halfway houses and pre-release centers. If there's any discussion, or would entertain a motion.
Motion to move to second reading?
Brooks,
Yes.
Jacobs,
yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Allen,
yes.
Lund.
Yes.
This is an ordinance amending section 27-6 of Chapter 27 of the Code of City Ordinances pertaining to the definition of halfway houses and pre-release centers. This is for adoption or rejection. Brooks,
Yes.
Jacobs,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Lund.
Yes. Moving on to item 8.3, an ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to execute an agreement with Infinitec Consulting LLC for upgrading the city's virtual server infrastructure. Gary.
Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council, in 2014, the City of Warrensburg migrated from a physical server infrastructure to a virtualized server infrastructure. We currently operate 34 virtualized servers on a 3-node system. These nodes are now reaching their end of their supportable life, and so we need to upgrade that equipment with a new 3-node system. Once the equipment is installed, the existing virtual servers will be migrated, and the old system will be decommissioned. During this upgrade, we'll also be replacing the current tape backup system. Along with that, staff recommends approval of the ordinance as written.
Any questions for Gary?
As it said, Bill, we move the second reading by title.
Brooks,
Yes.
Jacobs,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Lund.
Yes.
This is an ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to execute an agreement with Infinitec Consulting LLC for upgrading the city's virtual server infrastructure. This is for adoption or rejection. Brooks,
Yes.
Jacobs,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Lund.
Yes. Moving on to item 9, other business. Retail recruitment consultant contract.
So, we've been working with Retail Coach for several years. It is the practice of staff to make sure that we have the best partners and also the best prices to rebid those out every 3 to 5 years. And so, we did bid this out. We had 4 bidders that responded through the RFP. Retail Coach was the lowest bidder. While there are some areas of improvement, overall, Retail Coach has done a good job with us. Staff didn't have any reason that we were extremely dissatisfied with them to warrant changing, especially with some of the price points that it would cost to change to a different company. And so, staff would like to continue that relationship moving forward, and especially given since they are still the lowest bidder. So staff is recommending to renew the contract with Retail Coach. Again, this will be a renewal for 1 year, and then every year we can revisit whether or not we want to do that. We can renew it up to a total of 5 years if staff and council choose, but you're not locked into that. We can change that every year if you choose. So with that being said, my recommendation would be is to approve the bid of Retail Coach.
Any questions for Harold or discussion? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Brooks,
Yes.
Jacobs,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Lund.
Yes. Moving on to item 9.2, rental inspection ordinance task force.
So I sent an email out to council early last week, again, kind of recommending that this task force probably be a group of 7. That would include a mix of representation from UCM, the military base, some landlords, as well as some renters. Hopefully with renters, maybe a representative or someone renting that's a UCM student or staff, someone who's a military employee, and someone who's just a general citizen. But again, that's up to the council on what you wanna do. That was simply my recommendation. You could take it up to 9 or 11 if you want, I guess. There does seem to be some interest expressed by members of the community that would like to sit on this task force. My only thing would be is to make sure that we can keep it at a group that's productive, that can keep things moving forward, and come to some sort of consensus on behalf of the community. But other than that, I'm flexible. So this is your opportunity to discuss further the makeup of that task force, and if you would like to go ahead and begin appointing individuals to be on that. I would prefer that we get this task force up and running quickly, so that, we can get the task force to do its work and hopefully have that completed by March. And that would give staff time that, depending on what those findings are, and if council chooses to move forward with an ordinance, that would require basically the creation of a new department within the city, that we would have the ability through the budget process to budget that, so that way come October of 2020, we have a plan and funds in place to begin implementation, if that's what the council and the community choose to do. So with that, I'll be quiet and let the council discuss what you would like to do.
I responded to an email that you sent out and asked if the members of the board had to live within Warrensburg city limits, and I didn't recall seeing a response.
That's at the desire of the council.
Oh,
We have
that's
some
up to-
boards that application does not require residency within city limits. So I guess that would be at the will of the council. In my opinion, it would probably make sense that they would be a resident of the city.
Yeah. I wouldn't see any reason for
That's up
somebody
to the
living
council.
outside the city limits.
And on
to-
the landlord, I think they should at least, even if they don't personally live, you know, they live in, outside the city limits, but if they own property and actively rent property, I think that would suffice, so I think. Everybody agree on that?
I'm fine with that.
They should be, okay.
My concern was just, you know, some,
Recruit, which
yeah.
ones, yeah.
Having people from too far afield coming in and trying to help us, or trying to structure the ordinance or the recommendation.
I think they should live or own property, within Warrensburg.
Yeah,
We can all
I agree with that.
Okay.
Sometimes 9 is a lot.
Yeah, 9's a big number.
It's a big number to
Oh.
get 9 people
Trying
to
to
say
get
at the same time for the
representation
meeting.
from all of those parties
I know.
makes it a little bit large, so yeah, that is, a little large. We have many folks from the landlord side who are interested in being a part of it, as well as the council. Still recruiting on, renters, you know, from UCM, from Whiteman,
I have several
that's been challenging.
several students at the UCM fencing club that are students or that are renting that are interested,
Okay.
at least tentatively interested in learning more.
Please pass along, their names. Those are the only ones we haven't identified. There's a waiting list for all the others. Have lots of interests in certain categories, but still recruiting. So you guys like the overall framework of what Harold sent on the 3rd?
Yep.
Okay. Do we need to approve that task force as presented, or just move forward and start appointing?
I would approve it as presented, and then if you have individuals that you would like to begin filling those spots with, that would be good.
Somebody want to make that motion?
So the motion would be to approve
As
the-
presented.
As presented, that'd be the number of 7 people on the
Well, it's.
My only problem
Or
is
was
just
it
having
9?
one landlord though, cause I know there's several landlords, like you said, that wanna be on it.
My recommendation had two
Yeah,
landlords being
so
represented.
Two,
from the
okay.
email on the 3rd.
I just wanna make sure we're all knowing what, or
Yeah,
we all
so-
know what we're approving.
So I had a representative from the base, a representative from the university, 2 landlords, so that's 4, and then 2 council members puts you at 6, and then 3 potential renters, with 1 being from UCM, 1 from the base, and 1 at large, that puts you at 9.
Yep, that's how it was presented. So.
Yep. Okay, then I move that.
We can always go down, so.
Or we don't appoint,
Right,
you know,
right.
1 or something.
Brooks,
Yes.
Jacobs,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes,
Lund.
Yes. Appearances to the council not listed on the agenda. Anybody that would like to speak? None signed up? All right. And moving on to item 11, mayoral appointments. So we'll go ahead and start filling. First, let's recommend Scott Holmberg to the Arts Commission to serve as the staff, to serve in place of the staff liaison. That way we have a council member on that board. And I think we should approve that, and then we'll move on to the rental inspection task force.
move to approve.
Brooks,
Yes.
Jacobs,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Allen.
Yes, right here.
Lund.
Yes. All right, and then for the rental inspection task force, let's kind of just go through a slate here. So council liaison, Robin Allen and Mayor Lund. A representative from UCM to be appointed by Dr. Best, but approving that appointment now.
Should we approve an appointment before a
You're-
candidate's been forwarded?
You're giving the
So
president.
we're
go ahead.
leaving the selection to Dr. Best.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
So we're trying to narrow it down, and then we'll do the same thing with Whiteman Air Force Base, and we'll rely on a designee to be presented by Colonel Callis. Landlords, Mike Rich and Jeff Terry, and then still recruiting on the renters side. So please pass names forward if you guys have any. So we're looking for the UCM, Whiteman Air Force Base, and a citizen at large to be brought to that. So.
May I give them your phone number, Mayor? And then
You
you can
can,
tell them
or the
about
easy,
the
what I've been
application.
doing is having them send an email to Cindy.
Okay.
That way if she needs an application or something, she can correspond real quick.
Got it.
And then she'll disperse the names to everyone, and we'll appoint those hopefully in a couple weeks for the next council meeting. So.
Okay.
And then if I have questions, I may reach out to you guys, so please share who recruited them so that I can reach out if there's a bunch.
Okay.
So that slate I would present. And then also Harold and Barb as non-voting members of the task force to serve as staff liaisons. And I would entertain a motion to approve that. as
Move to
presented.
approve.
Brooks.
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Holmberg.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Lund.
Yes.
So question, Mayor, designated day and time for some of these that might want to and maybe can't because of that time and day, you know what I mean? Like you did with your environmental thing, it's a certain day of a time of the month. So if I'm approaching someone that's like, well, I'm busy on Friday, after you've already okayed them, what do you think? Is that too much down in the weeds?
I think the task force would have to determine that at their first meeting and how often and how regularly they want to meet.
You might be thinking about that.
Yeah.
What date? Because you're the one that's
I'd say
busy.
get some overall recruitment, and then if we need to shuffle some appointees, we can do that later on, but let's try and get everybody together so we can, kind of work off of everyone's schedule, which is a challenge sometimes. Moving on to miscellaneous matters from the mayor and or city council. You guys got anything? Okay. City manager report.
Returned from ICSC Red River State's Economic Development Retail Deal-Making Conference in Fort Worth, Texas, late last week. I think overall it went well. Had some good productive conversations. With some new entities that I hadn't had conversations with prior. So I'll be following up with them here over the next few days to hopefully see if anything of that comes to fruition. Also got some positive updates on some projects that are in progress. Hopefully we'll have some public announcements soon. So overall, a very worthwhile trip. It seems like I always get caught in bad weather coming back home though, but made it back safely. So, anyway, I've also filled the assistant city manager position. Danielle Doolin will be beginning work with the city on February 10th, and we're looking forward to get her on board. And that segues into the fact that tonight is, after many, many years, tonight is Slim's last council meeting. And so we'll miss him and his reports and his personality. Well, I guess he's welcome to attend as a public member now, if he chooses. Then he can really tell you what he thinks now.
Well, 2021, you can run for city council.
Yeah, he can. He lives out
He's got city limits for a year.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Never mind,
But,
you can't, sorry.
He did give a very comprehensive report in the city manager's memo. If you'd like to read through that, he kind of outlines a lot of the projects and some of the things that he sees being needed in the future.
I
So
did.
if you didn't get a chance to read that, I would
Appreciate
definitely
it.
encourage you to read through that as a good framework for what we need to be focused on over the next several years as we move forward. So it's been several weeks of many goodbyes to Slim, but Wednesday will be his last day, and he'll definitely be missed. And I definitely appreciate having worked with him.
All All right, and want to officially welcome Marcella McCoy as our finance director, your first council meeting and Slim's last council meeting. But welcome, and so this is the point of the council meeting that we kind of go around the room, all department heads and leaders of various groups, just kind of share anything that is pertinent to council. And so if you have any revenues or anything like that, we'd love to hear about those. Not to catch you off guard, but that we just kind of run around and then kind of Barbara, what's hot right now that you'd like to share with us?
Well, we're finishing up the integration of Encode 10 for the billing system for the sewers. Carl's been working on that very diligently, so we're hoping we can get that live in March. I presented some revenue projections in comparison to last year. They look pretty well right now. To comparison to budget, probably not quite where we would like for them to be, but it's early into the season, if you will, and making that happen. And so just watching those and working with the department directors going forward. And audits, we're wrapping that up, and that will be brought back to the board in March this year, just because it's gonna take us a little bit of time. I don't think by the time we get things and get me on board to make that happen, that we can do it in February, but we'll bring it back as soon as we possibly can. But it has to be at the state auditor's office in March, so it will happen in March, one way or another. And thank you, I'm glad to be here.
Barb?
One thing I'll choose to highlight out of the staff report is, we have done our first official online permit through the new building permit portal. It was an electrical permit. They created an account, applied online, paid online. All of that has finally been debugged for electrical permits. So,
7 more to go, right?
well, like 15
50
more.
more.
But the next, so we have rolled that out to any electrical contractor that wants to go forward with online. The next one, we've got a couple, I think Dan Speeds is taking a house through. So we're rolling those types of permits out 2 or 3 at a time, and they will all be rolled out by August of this year. But now that we know all the back end process works, they'll come out much quicker. So we're close to having that project done after 2 years.
That's exciting.
It is.
That's it. Welcome to the 21st century.
I know.
It's 2020.
Yeah.
Slim, we're gonna miss you.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate the years I've got to serve the community. It's time for me to start a new chapter. I'm eagerly looking forward to that. But you can't spend nearly 35 years and look back and have some regrets of things that you didn't get accomplished or that you wish you'd seen happen in the community. So I look forward to standing on the outside looking in and seeing some of these things that we've worked on and talked about for years being accomplished. So I'll be the first one to jump up and down and be there at the ribbon cutting when we have these things happen. So.
Well, I know I'll say my yard was, or the streets were very good. They were, with all the snow and all that, they did a great job.
Yeah.
But then the new person will say, well, Slim wouldn't do it that way.
That's up to the
Did a good
person.
job.
That's their dog and their pony.
That's right, that's right.
We'll start a volunteer snow removal program so you can come volunteer to run a plow for us. I think misses that.
I don't know.
Hold on here.
Yeah. Let me make sure all my cars are in the garage.
I know Jeff Imbo said something on the radio about how well the streets were cleared. I don't know if you heard that, but he did. He
I
mentioned.
hope they remember their. Thank you all.
Gary? Marcy?
Nothing additional.
Suzanne?
I just want to say thank you very much to Slim for not only taking care of us in the community, but also down at the depot. We certainly appreciate you and we're going to miss you. Best wishes.
Laura, anything from Arts Commission?
Mayor? Yes, I will say that on behalf of the Arts Commission, we have a group of very energetic and passionate commissioners. We are working on completing some of the projects that, have been started, the updating of the circle on Pine Street and dedication of pianos, rolling piano project, all of these things that we, are hoping to accomplish quickly. And, we are meeting the first Monday of every month and had 2 visitors at our very first meeting, and we encourage public to come. We're also on Woody's show on KOKO the second Thursday of every month at 8:30, and we encourage everyone to listen and find out what's going on regarding the arts in our community. Thank you.
It's really amazing that you're putting that much energy into it. It's exciting.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to do.
Well, and I know it's not only you. But
Needs you a shovel next time it snows.
the truth of the matter is that it is a Portland commission, and over the past couple months, it really has come alive, and so I think that's awesome.
Thank you for noticing.
Tarl, welcome. We saw that you submitted your name for city council, so welcome. Anything you'd like to share or for the good of the cause?
Not at this time. Just to observe.
Cool. Jill, anything?
We had our partnership and volunteer and recognition event last week. So thank you for those of you that were able to attend. We gave out 4 volunteer awards to various people and organizations in the community, and we have a very rigorous work plan for 2020. So I hope we get a lot of that accomplished.
Awesome. Susie, anything for the good of the cause?
Actually, I would say that the Diversity and Inclusion Commission is looking for new members, of course, to replace Morris, who is completely irreplaceable, but we do need to fill that seat. And also looking for new student representatives, because as happens with students, their lives have gotten busy. So we're looking for both a high school and a UCM student to fill those ex officio positions.
And as everybody hears any interest in any of our boards and commissions, please direct them to the website to fill out an application, and that will filter through to Cindy, and we'll put that on the docket to move and approve. So, Sarah, anything from the Daily Star Journal? We're gonna put everybody on the spot. Sorry. Nothing. Still going strong. Greg?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the report in the packet. However, I did want to highlight one item. We did complete this criminal justice system audit, the biannual audit from the state. It was completed by personnel from the Missouri Highway Patrol Office prior to Christmas. We have received our audit results, and it was determined that we have all the appropriate controls in place for access and use of the fingerprint-based CHRI for non-criminal justice purposes. So basically what that means is we got a 100% audit. We're good to go.
Good. Cool. Awesome. I feel there should be a lot bigger clapping for that. Like that's that's actually a pretty big accomplishment. Auditors aren't known for their tender loving dispositions. So
we're good. Thank you.
Chief, what's going on with fire?
This Thursday evening at Station 2 at 6 p.m. and you've all been invited. I hope you've got your invitations. You're supposed to have. We're going to do pinning for the people who have been promoted and the people who have been hired at the fire department. Captain Hill's done a nice job of putting the thing together. We're going to have a guest speaker. Air Force Base is going to be out flying the colors, and everybody's invited. Just going to be kind of a little cookies and punch kind of a deal. But it's a chance for the families of the ladies and gentlemen who have been promoted to see how much we appreciate their family members, kind of get them all out together. So if you're not doing anything, come on out, have some lunch, have some cookies, and see what wonderful employees that you sit over.
Awesome.
That's all I got.
This Wednesday, I'm deeply honored to be the speaker at the Chamber's Martin Luther King Luncheon, so hope y'all will have time to come out and hear my speech that I've been working on.
Looking forward to it.
Big hand.
Doug, anything?
The state has started rolling out their licenses for marijuana-related products. And as there have been the production facilities, the infusion facilities, transportation facilities, and testing facilities. None of those licenses have been approved in the city of Warrensburg, although there are some communities within a half hour of here that will see some of those licenses. The dispensary licenses are yet to be issued. We anticipate that within the next month. But with
Or
respect,
by the end of this month.
yeah, with respect to those licenses, there are none that were approved in the city of Warrensburg, and I don't know of any that applied in those categories for the city of Warrensburg.
They were supposed to go in with a letter from the city if they made application. We did not write any such letters. So assuming that they turn in complete applications, then I don't think any were submitted from Warrensburg. Looking at the information from these others, a lot of them I think went in with incomplete applications, and so it's possible something was turned in we're not aware of.
Are you talking about these other uses, or are you talking about the dispensaries?
We didn't write any letter for any uses, including dispensaries. I don't rule out the possibility that people turn in applications without a letter from us.
Nolan, anything? Brian?
I just wanted to say Cheatham looks fantastic. Great job there. You know, I wasn't here Friday to run down there and see the rain flow in. So next time we get a good rain, I'll run down there.
It's
Yeah,
much
it is.
important for flow in and it flow out.
Yeah.
That's one of those projects that I had on my bucket list, so
Yep.
I'm glad to see it.
No, I was happy to see that because I mean, those houses need to get that taken care of. So
Yeah.
Cindy, anything?
Wednesday at 3:30 at the community center, there'll be a meeting, excuse me, with someone from the from the Attorney General's office about the Sunshine Law. So if you'd like to go, you're welcome to go. I think it's going to be very informative.
Scott, anything?
We're good.
Robin?
Nope, 7 more. 7 more meetings for me.
Count-
No.
count-
Like 7 more what?
The countdown begins.
Yep,
So-
6 years, Ooh, long time.
And again, Slim, thank you for your years of service and putting your heart and soul into the community. And Marcella, welcome. Any need for a closed session, Harold?
No.
All right, anything else for the good of the cause? All right, we call this meeting adjourned.
All right. I think it's a closed meeting,
I think so too. Cindy will be the only female up here. It's been a while since we
Yeah,
haven't had a female on the council.
Unless a woman comes in the next week to
Yeah,
file,
yeah.
but I haven't had any calls.